Hi students, in this video we will highlight some of the requirements for Lab 5 Plinko with functions. Getting started, in Plinko with functions you need to refactor your Lab 4 code so that it uses functions. Refactoring means copying your code from Lab 4 and then putting it into functions, or you can rewrite it completely. It's up to you. In addition to using functions effectively, your Lab 5 solution must include all the functionality from Lab 4, which includes a single chip drop function, a multiple chip drop function, and a quit option. All of these need to work correctly, as required by Lab 4. So if we want to do a quick demonstration of that, you can see that I have a single chip drop function, option 1, and if I select 0, then we see that it works exactly the same. Notice the formatting here is the same as it should have been in Lab 4. Okay? One additional requirement to this lab is that all parts of your program must handle incorrect types of input. For example, if your menu expects integers, it needs to be able to handle string input. Okay? So right here we see that my menu expects an integer, 1, 2, 3, or 4. So let's see what happens if I give it a string. It looks like it handles it correctly and it loops me back to the menu. All parts of my code where user input is required need to be able to handle string input and correctly return me to the menu if that's not the type of data that is expected. Okay. For part 2, we're looking a little bit more at the use of functions. You'll see here that we have a requirement for at least the following functions: a single chip drop function, a multiple chip drop function, and a calculate prize money function. The reason for this is because in Lab 4 we saw a lot of repeated segments of code. A lot of if statements that were repeated in multiple places, and a lot of for loops that were repeated in multiple places. Our hope for this part is that you can put those for loops or those if statements into a function and then call that function multiple times rather than having to have those huge blocks of code all over the place. Okay, so you will be given 1 point for implementing and using each of those 3 functions. What's new to Lab 5 is the requirement of option 3. And this bullet point says add a menu option that allows the user to drop the same number of chips into each of the 9 slots. Okay. An example here says if the user enters 5, meaning 5 chips, you simulate dropping 5 chips into each of the 9 slots. So really what this is it's just option 2, the multiple chip drop, but instead of deciding which slot to drop the chips into, you'll be dropping the same number of chips into all of the slots. Okay? So let's do a demonstration of that using my code. So let's say option 3, just for good measure, let's put a string in there and we'll see that it doesn't work. It sends us back to the menu. So let's go 3, 10,000. Okay? And you'll see that it gives us a summary right here. So for slot 0, our total winnings on 10,000 chips, this value right here. And the average winnings, 789. So you'll see that these earnings for each slot resemble the bell curve. And that bell curve is found in Lab 4 with a brief explanation. So we can see that this is working correctly. Okay? Your output for this option in Lab 5 should look something similar. It should print the total winnings for each slot and the average winnings for each slot. And it should also give you some information to distinguish between all of the slots. Last of all is the good coding style requirement in this lab. Okay? The first requirement for 1 point is that srand is used exactly 1 time. Using it more than 1 time isn't going to help, and using it not at all will not allow true randomness in your code. The next requirement is no magic numbers. It's for half a point. Next, we want you to provide 3 test cases, and these test cases can just test different areas of your code. We don't expect you to test a specific path and wait for your code to encounter that path with a chip drop, but rather we want you to test 3 different areas of your code where problems could occur. An example of that would be how we tested our code with string input. So one test case could be something like, I went through option 1, option 2, option 3, and I provided an invalid input to each of them, and it should have returned me to the menu. Okay? So look for areas similar to that where problems could be encountered and test those. So for another half a point, you have descriptive variable names. Another half a point is code utilizes functions efficiently. This means you're calling the functions that you write multiple times. Return 0 is called at the end of main. Okay? So these are the requirements for Lab 5, Plinko with functions. If you have any questions, feel free to ask the TAs. We're here to help you. But otherwise, good luck with this lab.